In this Quixel Mixer tutorial for beginners, you will learn how to make a trim sheet and texture atlas in Quixel Mixer, and then use them in Blender 2.91. The link to download Quixel Mixer is in the description. I will be making a trim sheet and a texture atlas from tile textures in Quixel Mixer. Both of these types of maps are used most often in game development to help save on time and file size. I'll choose a 2K plane as my base and go into top view. I'll be using 4 different textures, which means I need to divide my plane up into 4 512 sections. I add a solid layer and give it a color. And use opacity masked for the blend type. I right click on the layer and choose Add Mask Stack. From the Mask Component menu, I choose a checker pattern with 1 for the repeat for X and 4 for the repeat for Y. I also choose Invert so the mask starts from the bottom. I add a second checker pattern and change the blend mode to subtract. I change the repeat X to 1 and the repeat Y to 2. And this will cover the second area that was produced by the first mask. I duplicate the first solid layer and change the color. And I uncheck Invert on the bottom mask. I duplicate the second solid layer and change the color. And I invert both masks. I duplicate the third solid layer and change the color. I uncheck invert on the bottom mask. I add a third checker pattern mask to the top of the stack. I change the repeat X to 1. Use subtract for the blend mode and check invert. I select the bottom mask and add a material to the layer stack. Using Alt and left click, I make sure that the material is only seen within that bottom mask. For the blend mode, I use opacity masked. I select the second mask and add a material to it. And using Alt left click, I make sure that the material is only seen within the second mask. For the blend, I use opacity masked. I select the third mask and add a material to the layer stack. And using Alt left click, make sure the material is only seen within that third mask. For blend, I use opacity masked. And for the offset Y, I change this to -0.05. I select the fourth mask and add a material to the layer stack. Using Alt left click, I make sure the material is only seen within that top mask. For the blend, I use opacity masked. I'll now export the albedo and normal maps. I'll use the normal maps for the trim sheet and the albedo maps for the texture atlas. I'll now apply the trim sheet to the simple model I made out of primitives. I'll make a new 2K UV. And I'll open up the normals that I exported from Quixel Mixer. This is called a trim sheet. A trim sheet is a collection of textures. In general, a trim sheet usually refers to the normals of a group of materials, although this definition may vary person to person. Under the UV editing workspace, I need to go into Top View to unwrap the floor. In order to work on a trim sheet, you need to have a long strip. This works because the left and right sides of the trim sheet are the same, so the trim sheet is a tileable pattern. I subdivide the floor, and then I unwrap it. I then move all of the UVs onto the wooden section of the trim sheet and make any necessary adjustments. Under the shading workspace, I make a new material and then using an image texture, I open the trim sheet and change the color space to non-color data. I then connect the texture node to a normal map node. And change the strength. And in rendered view, I can see the normals affecting the plane. Under the UV, I can actually make any necessary changes. I repeat this process for the 4 other parts of the trim sheet. I will now apply the texture atlas to the model. I make a new 2K UV and open up the albedo map that I exported from Quixel Mixer. This is called a texture atlas. A texture atlas is similar to a trim sheet because it is a collection of textures. In this case, albedo textures. All of the UVs are already unwrapped, so if I add a new image texture and open the texture atlas, I can now see the albedo texture. If you found this useful, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.